Right. Dust seals. This is the OEM dust seal. You can see the spring on it here. It's pretty wimpy. This thing doesn't hold anything back. So again, what Richard suggested is take the spring from your OEM Honda seals, your old seals that you're going to throw out, whatever. And you can see diameter-wise, it's quite a bit bigger than this seal here. So all you do is you just basically double the pleasure here. Snap that on. There you go. There's your fixed dust seal. Okay. Gonna put all this stuff together. So anyways, take off your tape. Like I said before, nice sharp edges here, right? Obviously you have your Honda manual already. You're going to look after pages 1717 to about 1720, thereabouts. That's what talks about forks. Maybe even 1721 if you're getting really specific. Anyways, guide bushing. It's going to go on first. I got some shitty old oil here. I usually just lube everything up. You can see this one just falls through and sits against the washer here. This washer will actually get driven in later by a seal driver here, and they'll sit inside the outer tube. Then you're going to take your, and I keep forgetting these goddamn names, slider bushing. Now, this is where your spacer comes into play. Again, some oil. You're going to take your shim and you're going to work it in to your bushing here, like so, inside it. And try to, you can see it nicely. Sean from Australia put us onto this. Doesn't really matter if this sheet metal that you're using, it's 2 thou, 0.05 mil, I believe. You can get this anywhere. With leftovers, make your little wife a necklace, whatever. Anyways, where the sheet metal is cut here, just kind of offset it maybe on the other side of where the actual bushing's cut. Already not working for me. Damn it. Anyways, slide your bushing on first. There you go. So that's there now. And then with that bushing in place, the overall OD with just one bushing is roughly 47.18 mil. Right. Everything's on more or less in the right order. I mean, it has to be. Next up is going to be our tube. So, let me just get set up here. Hang on. Okay. Got my brand new 2018 regular AT tubes. New coating. Yeah. Anyways, nicely slide those on. One bushing goes in, spacer goes in, sorry, washer. You're going to grab your seal driver, 45 mil. I've done this before, the getaway with some PVC piping cut in half, driven in. These things, I don't know, they're about 70 bucks thereabouts. Really handy. Nice thing is about them too is when you're actually driving this in, you don't need a lot of force, you don't need heat. You can use heat. A lot of guys use heat. It expands the actual outer, and the bushing sits nicely. I don't know. I don't really need it. Anyways, as you're driving it, you're going to notice a difference in sound. Once it seats, you'll see. That was easy. That was in. Take that off. Next up is your actual oil seal. Just going to slowly put that in there. And then the other thing I was going to show you guys is when your shield driver, I'm not sure if you can see it here, sits in here, it sits on the outer lip here, so it actually doesn't damage the inner lip. So that's why it's kind of very important to get one of these. They're very handy. They'll save you a lot of grief later. Anyways, put that back together. There you go, that's done. Take your shield driver off. Next up, we're going to put the circlip on. The circlip's dead easy to put in. The forks have a very distinctive ridge right here. This is where the circlip sits. And then the dust seal will sit below the circlip and keep the dust out. I usually just use a small screwdriver just to get that into the groove, and you'll hear it snap in place. There you go. Just do a quick visual check, make sure it sits. Oil seal, you don't have to use a seal driver, nothing stupid like that. Just basically finesse it in here with lots of manly grunts. Anyways, so there's your lower and your upper assembled. No oil, no nothing. We're going to move on to putting some oil in this. Now, real quick, my forks are revalved, and I've got race deck linear springs in here. I also have to cut the very large OEM spacer. Your damper without oil does this, it falls. Once it's got oil, it should be nice and smooth, nice and oily. Hey, there you go. Down and up through the entire stroke. Yeah, I'll put some oil in, won't bore you guys with that, and I'll go to the next step soon. Okay, so I got my big boy stool out here so I can see what the hell I'm doing. Put in the rough amount of oil right now. I'm going to fine tune it with my level gauge here, which is actually set at 100 mil. Honda says 95, and actually with the setup I have, it's recommended to have 50 mil of air gap, but I'm just going to set it at 100 for the time being. It's going to make the fork a lot softer. So it might be a little bit too soft, but you can always add oil later. Not a big deal. Anyways, bunch of oil in there. You can't really tell, but you know it's going up at a nice even rate. All the air's out. One key thing to note, this little hole gets very excitable when it's full of oil. You can kind of see it bleeding out. So go easy or else it's going to end up in your eye. So I'm going to put the damper all the way down. Take my syringe here, put it in, and I'm going to basically, well, see, I still don't have enough oil in here. Pour some more in here. And then what we're doing here is we're just going to get it down to, the oil is going to be about here. There you go. Right there. So we're just getting the oil level to that point. That's it. fits there. So done with the oil level. Next up, we want to actually put the spring in, obviously. Progressive spring, doesn't matter which way it goes in. There you go. Next up is your spacer, the yellow part facing down. Don't forget the donut, it's going to go on top here. These holes here are for your spring compressor. I'll show you guys that shortly. This is the part where it gets a little bit tricky, and I forgot to grab a tie wrap. So let me do that next. Okay, got the next best thing. Didn't want to set up disturb my camera setup here, so just gonna take that through. In she goes. Pull that up. Now, you can see right off the get-go here, I'm going to need my spring compressor shortly. Put that on. And slide this in next. Running out of room here. Now, you could technically get away without a spring compressor, but if you do lose this thing, which I just did, then it becomes a royal pain in the ass to try to fish it out. So, yeah, should have went with the tie wrap, proven tie wrap. Yeah, I'll have to fish this up. Damn it. All right, take two. Spring compressors installed, tie downs installed. I'll make fairly quick work of this here. So that's holding us in place. And we'll just, where the hell did that go? Right there. Use our handy dandy holder here. Son of a bitch. See, I forgot the goddamn donut. Where'd it go? Find a donut now. Oh, right there. Brilliant. Never mind. I'm okay. I'm okay. Anyways, there you go. It's holding in place. Spin this on. Now, in my previous video, I totally got myself confused. Didn't know which one to turn because, you know, stage fright and all that other bullshit. 17 mil on the underside, 14 mil on top. This doesn't have to be super tight either, by the way. This will more than do. It's never going anywhere. So now your top cap's screwed on to your damper rod. It's not going anywhere. Your spacer's on, your donut is on. Obviously your spring is on. We can go ahead and take this out. Just gonna sit that in there. Take off your tie down, like so. Take off your spring compressor. Like I said, with these forks, you don't necessarily need the spring compressor. It just makes it that much easier. It's, I believe Racetech sells these for $35 US. Put the whole thing back together. Spin that on. Here's a key thing too. This top cap does not need to be torqued on. It does not need to be on super strong or anything funny like that. Hand tight is plenty because your top triple sits right here and actually squeezes this tube, preventing this from ever coming out. So typically what I do is I make sure that the O-ring sits, that this is flat and basically goes as far as it can, hand tight. And that's it. Take your fork out. There it is. Double springs on your dust seal. Obviously, I'm going to wipe it before I reinstall it. And that's pretty much it. Do yourself a favor, test the fork. You'll always see a little bit of oil from residue of doing the job, but otherwise it should be spotless. Move fairly freely, and that's job done.